Good morning and welcome. Today we are starting a new discourse in our next year development discourses, the policing conversation. In Nigeria today, one of the most discussed issue is the issue of policing. Most importantly, as Nigeria witnesses a rising insurgency, insecurity, kidnapping, and all sorts of instability in the country. And like most of us know, the issue of devoluting the Nigerian policing system has been something that is in the hearts and mind of every Nigerian. Yesterday, we witnessed the Nigerian Senate trying to bring into question the issue of policing. And as citizens, we felt it was important that we dive into this conversation. Today, we're going to start by looking at the legal framework. And we've brought in two experts, not just experts who knows the theory, but people who are in the field, working around the issue of policing. To most Nigerians, policing is about the Nigerian police force, but we think it's more than that. The experts we are bringing today are not just people who know what it is because they've written about it. These are people who have trained the Nigerian police service, or Nigerian police force as we call them, and other forms of paramilitary agencies that are policing the country. Today, they will be looking at the legal framework. Are we doing the right thing? What might be the pitfalls if we go the route we are taking? Are there things we are forgetting? What should have been the best approach? Or are we on the right track to where we want to go? With me this morning to start this first edition, the maiden edition of the policing conversation, from my far left is Dr. Romy Moore. Romy is a lawyer, and incidentally, we have to start with lawyers just to give us the legal framework. He's a human rights advocate and someone who works around the public safety reforms. Again, he's the president. Most importantly, people know him presently as the president of Lawyers Alert, a human rights-based organization. Before then, he was also a commissioner at the Human Rights Commission and represented the Human Rights Commission at the Police Service Commission. Romy, you know your CV is too long, so I may have to cut it short and stop. I'll stop here so that, because a lot of Nigerians are joining us this morning. Next to him is someone, most times I want to call her Madam Policing because of what Kemi knows about policing and the way to make it work for us. Kemi Okenedo is equally a lawyer, a governance expert, someone with over 20 years experience. She's a founder and executive director of the Rule of Law and Empowerment Initiative, Partners for West Africa. That's what most of us know the work she does and her agency. Her work ranges from areas of access to justice, community safety, election security, gender responsiveness, and so on. Just like Romy, Kemi's CV is this long. So I'm going to stop here and let's dive into this conversation. Nigerians, a lot of people are tuning in or tuned in, and I know a lot of questions are going to come in. But let's start with one basic question. State police and the legal framework, are we doing it the right way? Kemi, let me start with you.
Thank you.
From what you've seen.
Thank you for having me. First, I'll say that I'm not sure if we're going the right route, because the first question we need to ask is, why are we clamoring for state police? And the clamor for state police usually comes around the issues surrounding insecurity. Nigeria as it is, when people say, oh, we're just getting into the face of state police, I'm like, are we sure? I thought we already had state police structures or state policing structures in the country, and we see it across. If we pick Lagos, which is the best example,
Yes.
you see the Neighborhood Watch Group, you have the Lagos State LASMA, Lagos State Traffic Management Agency. If you go to Kano, you have Hisba. If you go to Borno, you have CJTF, Boyes in Borno that has been legalized with state edicts. So from the back, we've had state police has crept into the country without amending
The
the
Constitution. Yes.
right? And when they were set up also to address some of the challenges that we felt or citizens felt were not being properly carried out by the police. Have they been able to address those challenges effectively? Looking at those ones that exist. So now we're just now trying to now decentralize the policing system, because now we're going into the constitution to say you can now have state police is legal within the country. That said, I would now say that it's not a silver bullet, because we've seen examples of it are bad across the country. And for the purpose for which they were set up, if you assess them, they've not really been able to address those issues. But does that mean we shouldn't go that route? I'm not saying don't go that. I'm not saying we shouldn't go. I'm not saying we should continue with the unitary police system. However, we should know that it is not a silver bullet to the issues of insecurity that plagues the country.
Let me still ask you the same question.
Yeah, I think Kemi captured it very well, but I'll just like to look at it from another perspective.
Okay.
Now, if we agree, as she has so very well put it, that there are policing systems already in the country at subnational levels, and she mentioned a few of them. Can you roll them back today, given how much, legal status in quote they have assumed in those states? You cannot roll them back. So if you can't roll them back, why don't we quote them with that legality, so that we can begin to look at structures, capacity issues, and all of that within these systems? And this is where persons like Kemi comes in trying to build even capacity at that level, those things that are inhibiting them from doing the things they should do or they ought to do properly. Because as it is now, in my state, for example, you have the Bene volunteer guards. They are some sort of state police. And these are everywhere in this country. But do they have the kind of training, support, human resource development, and all of that that they should have that can make them realize that their accountability is to citizens and not to the government? I know it's a very uphill task, but it's better we start than pretend it's not happening. Because like she said, these policing structures at subnational levels that are not legal because the Constitution does not permit it, they're here to stay. They're here to stay. So in as much as I agree that we may not be going at it the legal route properly, I concede 100%, but I think it's time we begin to come to terms with the realities and say, well, there's nothing we can do about this. Let's try and make the best out of this, and it goes from state to state. What I would say is not proper is trying to say, let's have state police and this is how they should operate. I think there should be context. Every state that has its own state police should operate within the context of that state. And with some parameters or some indicators that are, human rights compliant and internationally recognized. She talked about Hisba, for example. I have done some work with Hisba. Can you dislodge Hisba today and say you're going to bring in a state police the way we want it to be? When you look at law itself as a social engineering tool, so I'm neither here nor there in this. All I'm trying to say is that since we cannot kill this, unquote, we might as well give it a bet and hope that what comes out of it will be better than what we have now.
Okay, so the explanation from both of you pushes me to the next question. So we've agreed that the state policing structure, I don't want to use state police, the state policing structure has come to stay. So we've agreed that it's high time we make it legal, right? That's one thing. But from what we saw, the two branches of the National Assembly, the House of Representatives and the Senate, submitted 2 weeks ago and yesterday. Some lawyers that I spoke to, lawyers like you, are beginning to look at a lot of pitfalls in what they submitted. Now you're speaking to an average Nigerian who is not as learned as both of you, who do not understand those legal jargons. What are these pitfalls that you've seen that may be an iceberg that we might crash through in time to come?
You want me to start?
Yes, please.
First, I'll say the element, if the document I saw is the document that they were looking at, there's the element of the coordination of oversight, right? So when you're talking about oversight, I think there's a provision that each state will have its own service commission.
Yes,
but no linkages between that oversight to the federal, to the national oversight agency. Two is, we cannot shy away from it in the country, that identity, we face a challenge with identity crisis. Identity crisis hinged on ethnicity.
Part of our nation building.
Yes, on religion, So that is major. So when you're talking recruitment, what would it look like? Because the rule of thumb is that the police in any environment, in a democratic environment, should reflect the people that it's going to serve. Exactly. Right? So if you're saying it would reflect the people that it's going to serve, what would that mix look like? Federal Character Commission, with even the recruitment at the national level, is it as representative as it should be? And Dr. Romy will be able to speak to that, being that he was at the Police Service Commission, for me, those two, let me just pick those two, the issue of the challenge we have with identity crisis. So let me use Lagos again. If you're going to Kano or you're going to Borno, will somebody that is from the south get a chance to be recruited into the police in Borno State, right? Will somebody that is from the southeast get an opportunity to be recruited into the police in Lagos State? Let's be sincerely honest with ourselves, because we see that play out, Then profiling, which has always been a challenge, even with the national police, I think it will be amplified, right? And then finally, for me, we've removed police from the exclusive legislative list, right? The courts are not on the exclusive legislative list. The correctional services have supposedly been removed from the exclusive legislative list also. But what steps are being taken to ensure that the removal of the correctional service from the exclusive legislative list is also operational, right? Because you do not expect that you would state police infrastructure or personnel would arrest somebody based on a state crime, prosecuted in a state court, and then you go and
take the person to the federal prison.
So what's the interest, right? If your interest is decentralization and for us to have a viable federating system, your interest must be from the beginning of the chain to the end of the chain, not pick and choose the one that seems attractive. Yeah.
Dr. Innovative.
No, I mean, she spot on for me. The process itself is anti-constitution, in the sense that you are trying to say, let's not even talk about public hearings. The problem is much. Let's rush this. Let's rush this. Let's rush this against the constitutional provisions. So when you look at it, even in the steps they are taking, that the Constitution tries to, in its wisdom, ensures that the people's voices are reflected in what is going on, especially on issues like policing. You want to keep the people out. Persons that are the end users of the police, like she said, the police reflects and should be, that which the people want. So you want to take the issue of state policing and you're saying, look, National Assembly, get this thing done within 2 weeks. Let's take it to the states. When it goes down to the state, there won't be any public hearings. They'll just vote on it. And then at the end of it, voila, we have state police. So those steps.
Dr. Romy, sorry, can I go to court over lack of public hearing?
Of course, once you can establish the local standard, of course, you can say, look, you need to have your voice heard in terms of these matters, and the Constitution guarantees that for you. So you're not being heard and you think this process should be stopped by the court. It becomes matters of legal arguments. Can the court interfere in legislative processes and all of that? But the fact that you have a local standard to say, I have local standard, I mean, okay, we're talking to maybe non-lawyers, I have an interest over and above that which every other person has, because the state police thing you're bringing is going to interface with me in Benue State. I live in Benue State. So I don't want issues of state police. That when the Constitution says my voice should be heard, allow me that public hearing space to go to my state parliament and make my views known. I think that is really very critical. It's sad because we are coming from state police to federal police. In those days, where we had regional police, those were like state police. And there was a reason why we said, no, we're not satisfied with regional policing because there were so many weaknesses, so many defects. Let us move to federal policing. And so when the military came in, federal policing was, the preferred choice, and the Constitution eventually made it unitary. Question is, those challenges that made us become a federal policing system, are they being addressed, or are just going back into it again? These are the governance issues Kemi is, for example, raising, And that is why parliamentary hearings is very important, because we'll take all these things on board and see how they can address them in a systemic manner that will give us what we want. But I think rushing and saying state police tomorrow, voila, because we have issues of insecurity and blah, 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 why are they not being resolved by the federal police? Yeah, like most persons will say, it's multiplying the challenges of federal policing by 36, because at the states it will still happen. I think is something that we should be very methodical about, deliberate about, and it takes time. And the committee set up by the IG, for example, said, let's do this in 5 years in phases. Now we're saying, no, let us do this in 2 weeks. So look at 5 years that the IG is proposing, and the 2 weeks that the presidential directive is saying, look, let's get this done quickly. I mean, there's something wrong.
What you again, Kemi? I am equally why I'm looking at the legal aspect of this. Somehow my mind is telling me there's a lot of political interference, especially with regards to how the legal process should go. What's your view?
Of course. There is a rule of thumb, the days we were trying to was the new for the Police Act, that the Police Act used to come up for attention by the Parliament 6 months to elections. Then they remember,
we've not done this.
Not done this. We need to look at the Police Act, and then we'll go through the rigmarole and then arrive at elections, without alluding anything to this process, But I would first roll back a bit and say, what are we trying to address? We're trying to address insecurity issues, right?
Yeah.
What are the root causes of the insecurity? What are the main root causes of the insecurity? For those of us that have worked on Boko Haram and the issues in the Southeast, they're not policing issues.
Exactly.
They're governance issues. where people feel that they're being marginalized, where people feel that resources are not evenly distributed, where people feel that there is impunity within a system, these are, and then lack of opportunities, education, livelihoods, those are the root causes of insecurity. And I'm asking myself, where I sit, how does state police address the root causes? Because we seem to have a knee-jerk approach to this thing. If you're not going to address the root cause, and some of these issues are also on the table of the governors, right? Education is both federal and state, right? So if you don't have good state public schools, we don't have good state-run health facilities, state's independent electoral commission, we know what it is, what is going to be different, fundamentally different. The process they've embarked on also gives an indication that nothing is going to change fundamentally. It just means, yes, maybe manifesto promise. And this is the end of fourth year. We're going into elections. We have to be seen to be delivering this. The Police Act 2020 mandates the IG to devolve the powers from that he holds, right? Yeah. One way is they say the DIGs should go to the geopolitical zone, because at the end of the day, each DIG represents a geopolitical zone. You would expect that would also mean that in the states, that power is being brought to the level of the DPOs that are on the ground. That said, what we're seeing with state police, we're not sure if there will be devolution of those powers from the state to the local government level, because that's where the rubber hits the road.
Sure.
Yeah. We're not sure if what we would see would still be a regime-minded apparatus, right? That seems to hit all the fundamental ticks on the paper, but in practice, it is very far from what we're talking about. They said, okay, safeguard that has been put into the bill that was passed by the National Assembly, that the governors can nominate the commissioners of police. They would be known as commissioners of police and not IGs, but then it has to go to the state's houses of assembly for ratification. I don't know, but from where I sit, right, state houses of assembly are when we talk about open parliament and the engagement of the parliamentary system, I don't think we ever look at the state houses of assembly. Nothing, you don't see anything viable coming from the state's houses of assembly. What we see at the national level was years of engagement and civil society engagement with them. They seem to have just gone under the radar. Nobody remembers them. We don't even know the quality of the people that go to the state's houses of assembly. So do they understand what we're talking about here? Will they be rubber stamping? Definitely they will be rubber stamping, right?
So coming from your conversation, now from your discussion, when it goes back to the states assemblies to ratify, or one way or the other to try to tweak whatever thing the National Assembly has done.
I doubt if there'll be no tweak. I doubt if there'll be any tweak. I doubt if there'll be any tweak, except maybe from opposition states.
Okay.
Right?
How many of them?
How many opposition states?
Yes.
No, but we need to look at let's look at the policies of Nigeria today.
Yeah.
They're really opposition states as a situation. But as Kenny was talking about the devolution of power, I tried to also look at the policing system and state police, and also very importantly, how can we even get there within the present framework, the present legal framework? The Police Act is very instructive on the issue of community policing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one has taken the time to read what community policing is in the act, what it's about, because it's a fantastic model. And then we have try to operationalize it in local governments in Nigeria according to the act. So oftentimes you hear people talk about community policing means, transferring police officers back to their stations or having vigilantes or stuff, and that's a community policing. But yes, it may be true, but not according to the Police Act. What the Nigerian Police Act states is that there shall be community policing committees that shall comprise of police officers, traditional rulers, women, youth, opinion leaders within every community at local government levels, ward levels, all those levels, and they would sit together with the police, have meetings intermittently, and together police their communities. Yeah. And once you do this, the issues of trust, handing over safety, public safety, so to speak, to communities to have a voice, it becomes something that if you're able to replicate it, these little points come together to enhance the safety we are talking about. Like I said, we have tried to pilot this in two local governments, two communities in Benue State, Katsina, Ala, and Guma. We've added Agate to it now. And the state government was so impressed by the measurable successes of this model that it has adopted this as a state model of saying, let's go to the communities and set these things up. The tweak we did with the community policing committees is we brought in NDLA in, we brought in Civil Defense Corps, we brought in all those state volunteer guys, those police, state police as well. They are all in that in that committee, with the communities sitting with them every month to take reports, sharing intelligence. And there has been some measure of successes in these areas. Areas where, for example, schools were closed, they are beginning to reopen. Areas where markets were closed, they're beginning to reopen. The communities are having a voice. One story particularly that touched me was when they asked a few persons, what is safety to you? And the safety to us is our children going to school.
That's it.
Those schools were closed for over 2 years. So what happened? They decided to say, okay, let us open part of the school because the school was inhabited by IDPs. So a part was left open. He started going back to school. Everybody was happy. So that is safety in the eyes of the people, not boots on the ground. So I think if the intent and the spirit behind what we're talking about is safety, public safety, then we need to bring in communities. We already have that legal framework, so to speak, in the Police Act.
Okay.
And for me, this is something that the IG should take a very close look at. We've took the report to the IG and we hope he takes it very, he looks at it, he takes a second look at it.
So that's why we think that the public hearing is very important.
Yeah.
So that every opinion is brought to table, right? Rather than just the executive bill and it goes through. So that takes me to my next question, which I'm sure you want to answer now. If we all agree that we seem to have what seems like the legal framework that we should either deepen further and make it to work, do we think, and that's my opinion, do we think that this state policing or the state police framework should be that allows each state to look at its own complexity and environment and develop the kind of a state policing structure that does fit them into what they want to attend? Like what Lagos might want might not be what my state of Anambra wants.
Definitely.
And may not be what Zamfara State will want. What's your opinion?
I think it should be integrated, right? Because, I mean, just listen to what Dr. Romy has just described based on a legal framework, a framework that took about 16 years for us to arrive at. And we've not implemented the act to get the optimal impact of what we can from it. The regulations came on board just last year. Right. And now we're having another framework looking within that. How do they marry? How do they complement each other? I'm coming to your question. And at times I ask myself, I said, okay, maybe we'll say the federal police should look at federal offenses.
Okay.
Right. If we go through the route of offenses, right? But then you find
what are the federal offenses?
offenses. NDLEA is already looking at it. NDLEA, ICPC, EFCC, right? They're already looking at this federal offenses because they are also policing
agencies.
entities,
Yes.
agencies. Yeah. So where all of this that we have, if care is not taken, we're going to have too many cooks in the kitchen.
Which spoils the soup.
Which spoils the soup, and you can't hold anybody accountable. So what we need, really, I agree with you that in Enugu, what safety is in Enugu is not what safety is in Ogun State. Well, it's not what safety is in Benue. So that crafting, that model that allows you that when we have this large framework, we now come and we contextualize. Maybe it is in the process of that contextualizing that the police as we have it are struggling, right? Because directive is up. And they are not looking at the fact that they need to provide services to the people in the state where they are working or where they are operating. In my state, theft of mobile phone might just be, and not even in the state, because you have to break down that state to the different communities and the different local governments. Within the local government, there are sub. So you see, policing is very dynamic. You can't do it without the people. You can't say that even when we have a state police, we're home and dry. That's why I said it's not a silver bullet. Because what the federal entity is looking at is kidnapping, banditry, blah, blah, blah. But is it state police that would address those ones? Because they seem to be issues of national concern. So again, looking at the mandate, where do we put, do you understand, where do we draw the line? Would the federal police or the national police be looking at crimes that affect across? Because if you say state, then I'm looking at my own state. There are issues of jurisdiction. If there's fluidity, if there's a kidnap incident in Benue and the person moves across to Jigawa, can the police in Benue move into Jigawa
to arrest?
So I think we need to settle down a bit and we need to look at our context. We're not saying don't do, because it's all something that has always come on the table. Maybe the question is, how do we do it that it makes sense? How do we do it that we ensure that it's inclusive? We don't fall into the pitfalls or the possible landmines that are there because of our peculiarity as a people. For me, the least of my problem are the governors, right? Because if you do me, I'll do you, right? So if you are there today and you use your
8 years,
8 years will come and go now.
Yes.
So once you leave, another person gets there. Will the person now come in, or another person, another party? Even within the same party, there are different cliques.
I mean, God's sons fight the godfathers.
So what would happen, right? So these we can't shy away from them. Right? We can't say, oh, maybe some people are just being unnecessarily sentimental. These are the realities that we have as Nigerians. So how do we structure it in such a way that you just don't create a framework and then you walk away? This morning I was saying to myself, I said, okay, because we don't have opposition now, quote and unquote.
Yes.
Everybody is aligned. So it might look as if it's working. But post 2031,
for me, that's where the crisis will start.
When these guys go and a new set comes in and you have a viable opposition and the person now picks the legal instrument and says, no, in any jurisdiction, if I have the powers to do this, I must have the powers to do that. This is what it means. And then starts to work it according to his or her own script. What happens?
Dr. Robbie, let's do some operationalization here. Do you think it's possible to advise the governors to constitute their own legal minds and policing experts like you for each state to sit down and develop what they think will work for that state. Right? Just like the discussion we had. Like Benue will sit down and say, our own type of state police is this. Right? Anambra does the same. Jigawa does the same. Because, like I'm thinking, I don't know whether the kind of state police you have in a state like Texas is the same with the one you have in New York.
Yeah.
So I think that is possible if we take policing off the exclusive legislative list. Now we can take it off and just put it in the concurrent list without saying, oh yeah, so to speak, in Nigerian language, go and form your own state police. But if we just take it off and leave it there, just for that alone, let the conversation at the National Assembly or among parliaments and state assemblies be that let us take this off exclusive list to concurrent list and leave it at that. Once you do that, then states, in my thinking, can begin to discuss amongst themselves what kind of policing suits us. And these conversations will start. The domestication, the contextualization based on peculiarities on their own policing. Because what we are doing now is, let's take it off the exclusive list, the concurrent list, for the purposes of setting up state policing that will still reflect the same kind of, without looking at the peculiarities. So if your suggestion, which makes a lot of sense, is that let states have the conversation. The states can only have this conversation knowing that we're about to do something. The conversation cannot be had just for academic purposes. Because as long as policing is for the federal government alone to legislate on, which is under the exclusive list, every conversation at the state level is going to be for academic purposes. But once they know that this conversation can actually lead to us starting something, then every state can bring eggheads that are, that can discuss policy. I mean, every state has even, using Nigerian parlance again, sons and daughters everywhere all over the world who have the skills, are experts to come home and discuss how do we do this. I'll tell you what, if Ogun State, for example, says our sons and daughters come back and let us discuss the kind of state policing or the kind of policing that is good for us, you'll be surprised as to the amount of expertise and skills that will be in the room that conversation can be held, that will give Ogun State one of the best policing that is peculiar to Ogun State, knowing that it's already off the exclusive list. So I think for me, that's the thing, to just do it at that level and leave it and try to say we're taking it off, and this is how, if you look at the working document, a governor shall be, the IG or a governor shall appoint a commissioner of police who the two-third majority of the House of Assembly. We know the House of Assembly, we know that it's also the governor himself anyway, in most states, if not all. And when the commissioner of police feels he cannot do something, when the governor gives him orders that he does not like, he will report to the State Police Service Commission. And the State Police Service Commission does not have any relationship with the federal level will begin to do stuff and all of that. Begin to ask yourself.
And the state service commissions are the ones appointed by the governor.
Exactly. And begin to ask yourself, wait, where is even the resources to do this? That's another big question. So I think let's just take it off the exclusive, and let's let states, Lagos State, even without that being taken off the exclusive list, it has done wonderfully well in Lagos. Traffic, which used to be a nightmare in Lagos, it has improved by over 50-60% in the last year since last night came on board. In Ikeja, for example, you can actually see people obeying traffic rules. I mean, you can drive in Lagos and be comfort much more than where we are in Abuja. So I think states should do their things.
Okay, for our viewers who have joined us online, I know most of you might have comments or questions. Please send it in. I will quickly present them to the team here. So, having looked at this from this angle, my next question will be, we've kind of identified some legal pitfalls, right? operational pitfalls. But equally, you can't be talking about these things without, like you mentioned, the issue of financial. I don't know, but how are we going to handle the issue of security votes with regards to funding most of these things? I don't know. Are we still going to be maintaining the security vote at the same time? Why, some states are claiming that the money is not there to do this. But my question is that if some states are supporting the Nigerian police force to this amount, I mean, they could as well have their own, police operations if they wish, But beyond all this, do you think we've placed the cart before the donkey now? Would it have been possible for some of this conversation, some of this legal framework, some of these operational ideas to be done, to have been done even before we think about the Constitution? But I like the idea you said, if we could just remove it from the exclusive list, leave it in the concurrent list, maybe it could have triggered a lot of conversation and state being able to start shaping what they think that fits their own peculiarity. Kemi, if you can take on this.
I agree. Where would the money come from? That's a big question, because everybody's complaining about paucity of funds. Maybe they plan to redirect their security votes to this, right? But as much as I like what Dr. Romy has said about moving it from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, maybe to trigger, but correctional services was moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. It has not triggered any conversation per se amongst them. I know that Lagos was in the process. Last year, I found out that Lagos was in the process of putting it together its own legal framework to have its own correctional centers, So you see states that are serious. You see states, pardon me, and I don't mean to be offensive, that you just see states that do not understand this issue. Maybe their leadership do not understand these issues. Their leadership are more about politics than governance. Right? Because all of what we're talking about still feeds into the governance system, right? Alignment, when we talk about what would they be looking at, maybe if we understand what they will be looking at, then we would understand what kind of resources will be needed, right? And what you'll be looking at will be based on your peculiarity. Dr. Romy mentioned that Lagos had an issue with traffic, and with traffic came traffic-related crimes, right? So you could do like a chain mapping of how
this can lead to this.
This can lead to this, and what kind of system do we need? And they did that. When they came with funding, they also looked at their environment and saw that, okay, we have a lot of corporate organizations with headquarters in Lagos, right? And their people live here, so they must have an interest. So you saw the advent of the Lagos State Security Trust Fund some years back. I tried to do a mapping across the country to see other states that had the legal. They copied, but they did not operationalize it. Yeah, because what they did was to copy the Lagos model. And you copy the Lagos model, you try to implement it in Enugu, it won't work, because the kind of people, the situation in Enugu is totally different.
Yeah.
The Kano State still has a Trust Fund Act. What did they do with it? Nothing, because you just went to Lagos. Everybody said it's working in Lagos. You just picked Lagos. You came to dump it in Kano.
Copied
Yes.
and pasted.
So you saw that it wasn't working, right? Because that adaptation did not happen. And that adaptation is what we're saying needs to necessitate the kind of structure you want to put on ground. If you are in a state that is like a semi-urban state, that is like a civil servant state, that you don't have much presence of corporate organizations, corporate entities, what are you going to do, right? It probably means you need to rely on your tax, right? So are the people paying tax? What are the people seeing that would encourage them to be proactive in paying tax? How would you get the informal sector to do an assessment to the extent that they would be willing to bring out money into the coffers of the state, right? It's based on service delivery. Service delivery are goods and products of a viable, good governance, right? So we still come back.
Yeah.
Dr. Romy, can a state say, we are not ready, we don't want state police, we still want the federal police to be policing us?
The beauty for me of just putting it on a concurrent list and allow states to take it at their pace. In my state, for example, issues of herders and farmers is, that food basket thing is finally fading in food insecurity. If, for example, Benin State says we are going to run the state police based now that it's off, but we are going to center our policing in rural areas only, that will address the issues of farmers, herders, since we don't have the money to have police all over the cities, then you recruit, train, and post them to these places that farmers can feel some sort of safety and begin to, go. And so, so it's like Kemi said, it's about, states, every state and with its own peculiarity, because in Benue, that's the issue. There are some states where it's kidnappings. And if you go to Benue and say, okay, we're going to do a security trust fund and all of that, you are looking, for example, probably at the mining companies that can no longer mine in peace because they are afraid of herders. They will see that we need a state police, or that we need to finance this state police. And the same thing with farmers in these areas. But someone in, say, Makurdi, who lives I might say, I don't have the need to make any contribution to, I mean, the urgency, so to speak, or the need to do that wouldn't be there. So there are a lot of peculiarities. We were in Kano, for example, to train Hisba on, say, can do some human rights training for Hisba. And we're shocked at the reception that, we're given. Say, let's because we've been having a lot of bashing in newspapers. Thank God a human rights organization is here. Let's do the training and all of that. Those are the kind of little things that people in a community can contribute. So, okay, for us in Kano, we will take on Hisba and make it much more human rights, sensitive. We bring in women too who are in Hisba and all of that, and you can begin to have those like you say, security is dynamic. Changes can begin to happen, but these states can only do this if it's off the, But when you take it and say, let us establish state policing, and these are the parameters, go out, put it this way, then there's a problem. I come back against the issue of committees, Police Act. Eggheads were brought from everywhere. We participated too. And that is what you have today in Nigeria. Community policing, the Police Act that took a long time in being put. Like you said, the regulations just came in last year. So when you take it to the state level and you say, this is state police, when will the regulations begin to come? Are we going to be waiting and all of that when we already have a legal framework that can, if you operationalize it fully, it will, address the issues of insecurity at the state levels that we're saying state police should go and address. The IG in his wisdom looked at the whole thing and said, look, it will take 5 years for this to come to fruition. But then as the IG himself seems his voice is not strong enough, we're saying, no, what the IG said 5 years, let's do it in 2 weeks. For me, that is really turning it on its head. I mean, you want the head to work.
So this is too short.
It's too
to
short
be a success.
Yeah.
Okay,
when you rush it.
Yes. We have a question here from Eric Bell. Eric works formerly for Armed Survey. So I'm sure he's joining us from Switzerland or the United States. So his question is around issue of arms. So he's asking about the accountability framework for this.
Yeah.
Who is going to license these people?
Yeah.
How do we control the arms that are going to be given to these subnational police forces?
Yeah. big question.
Yes.
Big question that the framework that we're looking at has not answered.
Exactly.
Right? That's why I said, I keep saying that it's like we don't learn our lessons. We politicize everything without looking at the real issue, right? Eric is right. Who's going to license? How are we going to hold them accountable for the arms that are going to be given to them? That is the ones that you just want to give. But remember, we say that there are already entities on ground that are already bearing arms.
Yeah.
With nobody oversighting them.
With nobody oversighting them.
True.
So how do we even roll back and say, within a state, can we take a quick assessment of the policing, informal, non-state policing actors that are not violent, right? That already exist, that bear arms, and let us know how many do we have in the state. Let us know where the source, who gave, and how they manage it. Then you now move and then say, okay, what do we put in place to ensure that you are accountable for what you have? I will go back to my state, Ogun State. You have vigilante groups. For the vigilante entities that exist in the state, do we have an idea that in my local government in Mekwafo, how many guns are in that local government?
No.
No audit. Who are the people with the guns? How many bullets are with them? Before we now start talking of the new ones that we want to layer on top, depending on how we want to group or cluster the crimes. Kidnapping, banditry would come under violent crimes, right? They will come under gun-related crimes because they carry arms. So again, would we have solved the problem? Or are we creating another dynamic? I know some people, at times when we have this conversation with colleagues, they keep saying, oh, Kemi, it's as if you don't want the issue to go away. So you keep opening up new issues. But I said, it's like an onion.
Yeah.
We keep peeling and we keep peeling.
Yeah.
So which makes sense that it's not something that can be rushed. It's something that has to be faced, right? And we take it, milestones, targets, milestones.
Okay. As we begin to round up, let me now what we're going to do in the next 5 minutes now is to see whether, as experts, because one thing I love about this, our job, is that when we as development practitioners tell government that we love this country, Kemi should have been, I know where you would have been if you want to.
I wish.
But
you go, you come back.
Yes, because you love this country, and that's why you're here.
Come.
I know if you pick up your bag tomorrow and say you're leaving, people that will rush you to say, come. There are so many of them. But because you love this country, that's why you're here. So as you do, I know if you want to leave, you just, maybe the next time I'll hear that you're helping Interpol in France. Let's use the next 5 minutes to advise government on what to do. Let's start with you. What is it, especially from the legal perspective, what is it that they should be doing to make this a success?
Yeah, I think it's just to look at our conversations. And I think we've said that in between talks. For me, I think the first thing we need to do, you don't step into waters without knowing the depth. And I think for me, just like development actors, we need to look at this state by state in terms of what is the situation, the audits we've talked about, and all of this. We must know the extent of the problem and why we are even seeking to have state police. Because if you know the reasons why we're asking for this, then we need to begin to look at the solutions without necessarily saying, let's go into state policing, because the issue of funding is key. The issue of political immaturity at the subnational levels, we can't shy away from it. At the federal level, is a bit better because of, development actors are this, and we are all watching, and we are consistently, saying things that act as a sort of a restraint. At the subnational level, it's absent. You're going to have what we had between 1960 and 1965 that led to saying, let us let go of regional police and get to federal police because of abuse. And so for me, the issues, like, let us solve those issues first, and then we'll begin to talk about state police. But how do you solve the issues? We solve the issues through constitutional means. And I think this one of saying, let us rush the process, it's a very, very, very wrong thing to do. We cannot rush this process. We must be deliberate about it. We must be intentional, looking at the likely pitfalls. And that can only come to bear if we follow the constitutional means and processes and steps of doing this. I think states should be allowed to debate this in line with the two-thirds majority of state house assemblies agreeing to this. Once the debates are had at the state house assemblies and they are not teleguided, they are comprehensive, we can begin to say, oh, we are on the right path. For me, that's what my advice would be.
Okay. Kemi, I have this question from Professor Jude Mamudu. I think he joined from Adamawa, and I want you to address it. He's asking about these safeguards. He's asking, do we think that the State Assembly and the State Police Board, that obligation will be given to, can enforce those safeguards against the state governors or the politicians?
No, I think we've said it, we've alluded to with what we have, right?
Yes.
Looking at what we have, the environment we have right now. No, they can't.
It would be like turning stone into bread.
How? The person that appointed you, the person that sponsored you, the person that, no. The answer is no.
Have you heard of the Police Service Commission going to court with the police?
Yes.
That they are supposed to be supervising in Nigeria. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's this at the federal level, where the Police Service Commission had to sue the Nigerian police force and saying, you are taking our powers, give us back our power. You're not supposed to do this. So they go to court, the Police Service Commission, the police force wins round one, Police Service Commission wins at the Court of Appeal, and Police Service Commission wins at the Supreme Court. But we are still where we were. Nothing has changed. The law has been interpreted by the highest court. So when you look at what's happening at the federal level, and then you say rail guards at the state, by the State House Assembly, excuse me, we need to have State House Assembly that are truly, truly, truly independent. Sometime back in this country, somebody was contesting for president, actually, Olusegun Obasanjo. When he won the PDP nomination at the time, he turned and looked at the person who came second, Alex Ikweme, and said, I'll make you Senate president. That is the idea of the legislature.
Yes.
At their campaign, even before he got elected, he was promising Ikweme, I'll make you Senate president. Ikweme said, no, thank you so much. I don't want. But that is what happens at the state level, where governors are fully in charge of state house assemblies.
Okay, I have one comment from Chris Ichite, who joined from Cameroon. So he has listed a lot of things. He talked about issues of the legislation not being a strong safeguard for an institutional guide, right? Issues of physical planning, training reforms, and political will. After listing all of them, he said, is Nigeria and the states ready for state police?
Honestly,
you're shaking your head.
I'll say no. I'll say no. It needs planning.
Yes.
It needs maturity, right? It needs consultation. One of the issues that the Nigerian police force as it is lack of public trust. The public don't trust the police. Why don't the public trust the police? A lot of times I tell the police, it's not you. It's the face of the government
that they see.
They don't trust the government. So if that is what we have at the federal, at the national level, you can imagine what could be replicated at the state level. I'm not from Abia. I've not been to Abia State.
You have to.
But I've heard of what's happening in Abia.
Especially my city of birth, Aba.
Oh,
you need to come.
So you understand? Yeah. So you can imagine if the Abia State governor rolls this out, he would have the full cooperation of his people. Because at the end of the day, policing is people-centered. It should be citizen-centered. And that's one of the things we pushed for in the review of the Police Act. It's not regime-oriented. It is people-focused. It's people-centered. And until we get that right, what we think, what the government wants to do, that, oh, we're bringing a paradigm shift to governance and to the policing ecosystem, would turn out to be a failure and would double or multiply the challenges that we are already facing. And I'm sure they don't want it to be recorded, to let it to be said some years down the line. They'll say, oh, it was the Tinubu administration that brought us to where we are. If it is good, we'll all be happy. If it is good again, on the other side, we'll say, we wish we had never gone this route, So
thank you, Kemi. Thank you, Remy. And to our viewers, we've come to the end of the maiden edition of the policing conversation. I mean, like you could see us agree here today. We are not saying that state police is not something that Nigerians want, but we're saying that it needs rigor more than what we're doing. It needs debate. It needs a lot of conversation around it. We need to really plan. And most importantly, to dive into a big task like this, we need to face it until we get it right. Thank you, everyone, and see you next month as we look at another aspect of the policing conversation. Thank you.